We are inching closer and closer to the national championship game, and I think both Notre Dame and Ohio State should feel really confident and good about their chances of taking home the gold trophy because each, I think, have multiple pathways to victory in this game. But on the other side of that, I think both teams have to be worried about one really big specific thing. For Ohio State, I think they have to be concerned about the style that Notre Dame plays. Because when you go back and look at the teams that Ryan Day has lost to as Ohio State's head coach, and especially maybe the more high profile losses, like against Michigan, their losses come to teams who are very physical, control the line of scrimmage, control the football, and try to make Ohio State's offense sit on the bench. And that is kind of what Notre Dame excels at this year. It's a lot of, for lack of a better term, ball control offense. Their defense forces turnovers, which at times Ohio State has been susceptible to commit. But they win the point of attack. That is how they have been successful since they lost to Northern Illinois. They play a physical brand of football. They run the football, throw when they have to, and then defensively stiffen their backs, rush the passer, force turnovers to set their offense up with short fields. That's the name of their game. And if you were to draw a blueprint of how to beat Ohio State, I think that's it. I think it's we're going to run the ball. We're not going to put ourselves in a situation where Jack Sawyer and JT Tuimoloau come off the edge in obvious third down passing situations. And our defense puts our offense in really good positions. Ohio State's biggest loss this year, outside of the loss to Oregon where you lose by 1 point on the road, they lost to a Michigan squad who was good on the defensive interior, set their offense up for short fields, and won the point of attack. And so Notre Dame has kind of been a Michigan light in that category, where they're not as bully ball, so to speak, like the Wolverines were last year, but it's not far away from that. It's not far off from, hey, this is what we want to do. This is our identity. This is who we are. And we know that our opponent knows that about us. And yet, we're still going to show up, and that's the brand of football we're going to play. And so I think there has to be some concern for Ohio State that if you get into a low-scoring ball control, Notre Dame doesn't snap the ball until there's 5 seconds on the play clock type of game, in my opinion, I think that's going to favor Notre Dame. Now, on the flip side, for the Irish, I don't think they've been tested on the outside in the college football playoff. Indiana tries to get the football to the outside, but it's not down the field. Curtis Rourke was hindered in that game for Indiana against the Fighting Irish, so they didn't really have the ability to get the football to the outside. They didn't have the football they didn't have the ability to drive the football downfield. And that'll put Notre Dame in a position defensively to play to its strengths. It's pretty similar for Georgia. They're with their backup quarterback getting his first career start, and they don't have the ability to drive the football down the field. They don't have the ability to get the football to their playmakers outside. Funnels everything to the middle of the field, which is where Notre Dame is at their best. And then you get to Penn State. Their wide receivers did not catch a ball, did not catch the football. Drew Aller threw the ball to backs out of the backfield and their tight end. They did not get tested on the outside in their 3 games coming into the national championship game. They just didn't. Now, that's not to knock Notre Dame. That's not to say that their path was simple to get here or anything like that. They've won 3 games to get to the national championship game, just like Ohio State did. They had challenges. They had adversity they had to fight through. They had their backs pushed up against the wall. But they didn't face somebody like Jeremiah Smith. They didn't face somebody like a Emeka Egbuka. They didn't face really a quarterback who can get the ball to the outside down the field like Will Howard can, and does. And so that has to, I think, be a concern for Notre Dame going into Monday's game. They have to be concerned about, one, their secondary has been somewhat decimated by injury throughout the course of the season. Now, their replacements have played at a really high level, and they should be really, really thrilled with that they have depth at a really important position. But at some point, I guess I just think if you're reliant on forcing turnovers, at some point that's just not going to be there for you. At some point, you're going to play somebody who knows coming into the game, I can't put the ball in danger. I can't play into Notre Dame's hand, and is going to be talented enough, smart enough, and equipped enough to say, I'm just not going to give Notre Dame the ball. I'm not going to be the reason we lose the game. It's somewhat similar, I think, to teams that, you live by the three, you die by the three in basketball. If you shoot a bunch of threes, sometimes it's just not going to be there for you. And I think it's somewhat similar to that in football when you're so reliant on setting your offense up with short fields by turning the ball over. And if you don't have the playmakers outside to combat Ohio State's playmakers, because it's going to be a somewhat whole different level than what Penn State brought to the table, than what Indiana brought to the table, than what Georgia brought to the table. Notre Dame was, I'm hesitant to say this, Notre Dame was lucky that they played the teams that they did when they did, that they got an Indiana team. Now, I'm not saying, because I would have picked Notre Dame to beat Georgia if Carson Beck played. They played Indiana with a hampered quarterback. They played Georgia with their backup quarterback. And then they played in the semifinal a quarterback who can't get the ball outside, who throws the ball inside the numbers and inside the hashes. He just doesn't throw the ball downfield, doesn't throw the ball outside the numbers. Ohio State isn't that. And so I think when you're playing at some positions, backups, or maybe guys that you didn't expect to play as big of a role as they have this year, coupled with really talented players and an offense who is not afraid to throw the ball downfield or not afraid to throw the ball outside the numbers, 15 to 20 yards down the field, it might be a bad combo. So it's a bad combo for Ohio State to, hey, Notre Dame plays a style that we maybe don't match up with well. The old styles make fights. That's not a style I think Ohio State wants to play. On the flip side, Ohio State doesn't play a style that Notre Dame is going to match up really well with either. And maybe they will. Maybe they just haven't matched up well, or haven't been forced to match up with a style like Ohio State on the outside. So it's one concern on each side that I think has to keep Ryan Day up at night and has to keep Marcus Freeman up at night to go, how in the hell do we make sure that this isn't the one thing that beats us? And I think it's something to watch for on Monday night. That'll do it for today's episode of the Daily Huddle. I appreciate you making us a part of your day, however it is, wherever it is you're doing so. If you're watching on YouTube, hit the subscribe button. Make sure you're getting all the great college football content we're pumping out. If you're listening on the podcast feed, drop a 5-star review. It goes a long way in helping out the channel. I'll see you on Sunday for another episode of the Daily Huddle.